let's look at some definitions. In 1997, Daniel Goleman came out with a book called Emotional Intelligence. So he popularized the attitude that it's not only about your IQ. You can be intelligent, you can be strong, but if you don't know how to adapt your emotions, you cannot be successful. Well before Daniel Goleman, Aristotle looked at it and simply said, fine, be angry, but with whom? The right person at the right time for the right reason. And so that really is the basis of emotional intelligence. Understanding it, understanding not avoiding anger, but understanding how to use it to have the most impact. Two other definitions, a bit closer to our time: the ability to perceive emotion, to understand it and integrate it to facilitate thought in order to promote personal growth. So that's about you. Another one that came up further and took it a step further, and specifically saying effectively understanding myself and others. How do we relate to people? How does that impact our relationships, the environment in which we live? And this is ever so important today. We live in a gyroscopic, non-stop, 24/7, 365 world. It is much more complex with lots of paradoxes. You work with geodispersed teams virtually. All of this becomes building more and more emotional climates. So that's why emotional intelligence is no longer something that you can say, I don't need to worry about that because I'm intelligent. It is part of who you are. Neuroscience today is proving we process emotions 60,000 times faster than your thought processes, cognitive. So it's something to think about. It's something to take seriously. What is it not? Because people say, ooh, emotional intelligence, that's, I have to be nice all the time. No, it's not about just being nice. It's not about letting it all hang out either. It's not about just saying, well, now I have the right to be emotional. But it's understanding how your emotions impact your reactions and how they show up on your interactions. There are 5 foundations of emotional intelligence. Obviously, the first part is you. What does it mean to you to be self-aware, to know how to self-manage oneself, and to self-motivate? One of the biggest issues today in companies is motivation. If you do not understand how you motivate yourself, you cannot communicate a positive environment to others. And of course, the other foundations are not only about yourself, but how others see you. We all have those blind angles. And if we don't reach out and to learn how people perceive us, then we cannot understand how they feel, empathy. We cannot improve our vision of their perspective on a situation. We cannot be interactive, build relationships correctly if we have erratic or emotional volatility. We need to remind ourselves that Professor Mehrabian came up with the idea that, studied actually, that nonverbal communication has a major impact on how you communicate. 93% of what people are listening to or understanding is your nonverbal reactions. David Rock, who is the founder of the Neuro Leadership Institute, has studied, along with neuroscientists, what happens when there's emotional stability. First thing is that our brain seeks stability. Our brains actually are very lazy, and they want to just be calm. So they look for routine, they look for what they know. Practice makes perfect. And the minute you're having that difficult conversation, that uncomfortable crisis, your brain sends out neurotransmitters that puts it on alert. And what's happening is your brain is running through its amygdala, it's in the center of your brain, and you're having an emotional hijacking. That's human, be it in Asia, be it in Europe, be it in the United States. And the questions your brain is asking is my status being questioned? Who I am, my identity? Do I feel autonomous? Do I have a choice in what is happening to me? The question about relationships, are they now being threatened? And is any of this fair? That happens very quickly in your brain. You feel that emotion. Some people have their hands sweat. You feel the stress coming on. And your brain is saying, what do I do? Do I freeze? Do I fight? Or is it flight, flee? Do you run away? And with that, we can understand that brain research is showing us that chronic high stress prevents people from thinking. Their brain cell activity becomes limited. It affects their creativity. It also, we've seen that our heart is our brain. The first organ that is created in a body is the heart. Before you make any decision, you ask yourself, consciously or not, how do I feel about this? So emotions are not something that you can put aside. It's not something that you leave at home when you come to work. You have them with you. When there is instability at work, 30% of employees make mistakes on purpose. 27% hide from their boss. Have you seen any of your direct reports recently? 33% confess to not putting in their maximum effort. And I think what's even more dramatic is 25% of them took longer breaks, but 29% took sick time. When there is not emotional intelligence at the workplace, there is an increase in absenteeism and an increase on security. There are accidents at work because people are not emotionally stable. What are these emotions? 4 key emotions that are intimately intertwined, linked. You have anger, fear, sadness, and joy. And they're showing again in neuroscience today that if you do not address the issues of anger, you cannot celebrate joy. If somebody's fearful and you do not bring it out and it sits on their stomach, it has to come out at one point or another. So in order to be vulnerable, which means in order to be attuned and be able to speak about your emotions, it is only through that that you will be able to experience real happiness. Ask yourself, how do you affect others? Or perhaps, how do you infect others? Toxicity is no longer an excuse. I've been in companies where people say, oh yeah, but he's like that. It's okay. We ignore him or her. Or we've put them down at their offices at the end of the corridor. Nobody goes to see them. That's social isolation. They've shown through neuroscience that social isolation is as painful as a broken bone. So avoiding somebody who is toxic, you're not being productive. You're not helping that person. Understanding that strategies for managing it, simply enough. Negativity, negative reinforcement is a destructive cycle. We know it today. It's been proven. Negative words produce negative thoughts. And in exchange, they produce negative emotional feelings, which in turn produces negative choices. But positivity, it's difficult. Sure, it's easier to make fun of people. It's easier to be negative. It's easier to lash out. But I guarantee you that, and neuroscience proves that for one negative comment, you have to hear 3 positive comments to erase that negativity. So that, those third-degree humors, those slight remarks, that sometimes, it's supposed to be funny or they should get it. I need to ask you, how would you feel if you were the target of that slight remark? And in order to understand how you can manage your emotions, there are several methods. The first one is simply situation selection. Stay away from it. Unfortunately, if you can't assist that toxic person, make sure you go for a walk when you see that they're toxic. Try to get away from it. There's been a lot of thought of suppressed response, but unfortunately neuroscience has proven that if you suppress emotion, it will come out in 1 day, 1 week, or 1 year. So you need to get it out. And if it doesn't come out verbally, it'll come out in another way, coronary disease, etc. And the best way to handle emotions is what we call appraisal and reappraisal, is to go through the process of understanding that this is what I'm feeling right now, and how can I shift to add value to the environment. Simply enough, it's understanding that we have a basic reaction, and then when you feel it, we all know it, we all have our stress symptoms. When it's coming on, you need to step back, physically step back, shift your perspective, and figure out in the context, is it cultural, is it situational, is it corporate, what is it that is having each of us come from opposing views? Or why is it that I'm having that emotional reaction? And that's when you can have an emotionally adapted reaction. Another way to understand your emotions and what to do about it, first of all, is to understand that the slight effort you make. I'm not asking you today to walk out of here and change entirely who you are, but to choose one or two behaviors, because with 20% change, you will impact 80% of your environment. So make that effort. Understand that everybody across the world, this is from my book, is about respect, relationships, recognition, and rewards. Everybody wants it. Understanding how you get it, how you can enable others to reach those human principles will enable you to establish an environment which has emotional intelligence. So what are you going to do about it? Feedback. Go ask a coworker. Listen to them. Just accept it. Turn it into feed forward by saying, thank you. Simply enough. You don't defend yourself. You don't explain. You don't, well, that was a particular case. You just listen. Then you can walk home, go into private, go into your office and close the door, and start writing down everything you felt when that person said that you're not clear in your instructions. What do you mean it must be his fault? I don't care. I'm strong. I'm better. Whatever. You write it all down on a piece of paper. Then you list all of your justifications of why you felt that way, so you can understand where the disconnect is. Read the list out with emotions. Put all of your energy into it. Ask yourself, what will you do the next time when you have this urge to be emotionally reactive to feedback? And simply say, with all my best intentions, when I do this again, how will I clean up the mess? Because it's not fun for anybody when you're emotionally reactive. Then you go back to the person that gave you that feedback, and you say simply, thank you, I apologize. I did not know that you perceived my reaction that way. Because everybody's perception is correct. It may not be yours. Apologize, commit to a cleanup plan, and agree that perhaps if you have that reaction again, maybe you'll pay €1, you'll do something so that it will train your brain to react differently.